Hello, this is Dhamamy. This is my first video, first upload that I've made. As you can see, I am not Propaganda Techniques. A few people had suggested that we were the same person. As you can see, we are not. It's been a while since I've done any public speaking. I haven't given a talk since I left the Watchtower. I wanted to present some information, some evidence from a court transcript and a judge's verdict on a motion that was presented. It's now actually right in Canadian case law, and I think people would find it very interesting. It demonstrates how willing the Watchtower lawyers are to actually lie under oath, present fraudulent information to the court. And I want to show that good evidence that the Watchtower is actually run by lawyers. That's coming right up. Okay, this is a book that references some Canadian case law called Remedies, Cases, and Materials. And the case was Watchtower versus Steed. And it has to do with a motion related to that case. The motion was brought by the plaintiff, Frank Motrell, for an injunction to prevent the defendants from proceeding with a hearing to determine Mr. Motrell's status within the religious group known as Jehovah's Witnesses. The background of the case is as follows. Mr. Motrell has been both a lawyer and a Jehovah's Witness for approximately 40 years. Over the 40 years, many of his clients have been Jehovah's Witnesses, and he has handled problems such as divorce and estates and things like that. He also has as a client the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. The defendants in the motion that he has brought forward are John Dieter, Andre Romsayer, which are two of the Watchtower Society's administrators, and also W. Glenn Howe, QC, Queen's Counsel, and John Burns, both lawyers who are in-house counsel for the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. There's some other defendants here, Circuit Overseer, and some members of the Judicial Committee that presided over a matter regarding Mr. Motrell. In 1993, the Law Society of Upper Canada they launched an investigation into Mr. Motrell's legal practice with good reason, because there was allegations of his misapplication and misappropriation of clients' funds. It is alleged that some of the members of Jehovah's Witnesses and the Watchtower Society itself were affected by Mr. Motrell's mishandling of funds. 1994, the Watchtower Society conducted its own investigation into whether Mr. Motrell was in violation of any scriptural principles such as to warrant discipline. In April of that year, a judicial committee of the Watchtower Society, comprised of 3 members, held a hearing on charges of theft against Mr. Motrell. The church's judicial committee decided that Mr. Motrell had committed theft and sentenced him to reproof. Reproof is something that they actually will do privately or sometimes publicly, make an announcement to the congregation. However, quite possibly, the people over at the Watchtower headquarters weren't happy with that, and somehow the reproof changed to disfellowship, which is basically an excommunication from the church, and shunning. A person is to be shunned. Mr. Motrell appealed this decision, according to the Watchtower's own procedure, to an appeal committee on April 25, 1994. Surprise, surprise, the original committee's decision was upheld by the appeal committee. Now to the basic facts of the motion. Mr. Motrell had a number of concerns regarding the conduct of the hearing before Watchtower Society's First Judicial Committee and the Appeal Committee. He contended that both committees breached the rules of natural justice in that they interviewed witnesses without him being present, limited his right to cross-examination, and prevented him from being represented by legal counsel. Not surprising, anyone who's familiar with the Judicial Committee of Jehovah's Witnesses is very much like a star chamber, where the application of basic justice tenets are thrown out the window. Mr. Motrell went on to state that they applied an incorrect definition of theft, specifically found that he had no intention to steal, yet decided that he had committed theft. Basically, they were just doing what Mr. Howe and Mr. Burns had told them to do. So here's where it gets interesting. The defendants, specifically the Watchtower, insist that Jehovah's Witnesses are free to interact with the disfellowship member in any manner they wish. Of course, any Jehovah's Witness can tell you that is a complete and utter lie. It is argued that nothing prevents a member from speaking to the disfellowship person or giving evidence with respect to that person at a hearing. As a result, the defendants, the Watchtower, contend that Mr. Motrell will not be impeded in presenting his case before the Law Society and will therefore not suffer any harm that cannot be compensated for by damages. The judge goes on to state, however, Mr. Motrell has provided the court with contradictory and, in my opinion, this is the judge's opinion, convincing evidence in respect of how he might be impeded in communicating with and preparing witnesses for trial or the hearing before the discipline committee of the Law Society. And this is the one of the articles that Motrell submitted to the judge. It basically says if someone's disfellowship, you don't talk to him, you don't speak with him, you don't do anything with him. And here's some more. The judge was pretty much thoroughly convinced. He says, in my view, it is entirely possible Mr. Motrell's ability to speak to Jehovah's Witnesses could be severely impaired upon disfellowship, and this would have significant negative impact on his defense before the Law Society. Of course, because many of the witnesses are that would be coming to the Law Society would be Jehovah's Witnesses, and their evidence might be quite weighty in this matter. And a person called to testify under those circumstances, the circumstances of Mr. Motrell being disfellowship, would be in an extremely awkward position. This judge is very smart. He understands the dynamics of the situation. Such a person would be caught between their sense of civic duty to fairly impart the facts that they know of the case and the strong belief in their faith and the dictates of that faith. They must separate themselves from this outcast member or risk being contaminated themselves. Well, Mr. Motrell made his point to the judge. The judge saw the possibility of quite a bit of harm to Mr. Motrell. So what this video hopefully demonstrates is that the Watchtower and its representatives are more than willing to lie. They fraudulently misrepresented Watchtower policies to the court. The judge saw through the Watchtower smokescreen and granted the motion to Mr. Motrell. I hope you found this information of interest, and by all means look at the documents that are provided in the link in the sidebar, and give you the whole picture of the whole story. Thanks for listening. Have a good one.